Hi, I'm Kane, and today I'm going to take a look at the TAL Bassline 101 for pluginboutique.com. It's a bassline tool for those acid house moments, and I'll take a look now and show you what it can do.
So this is the TAL Bassline 101. It's a subtractive synth based on the classic analog one with some amazing modern presets built in. So before I go any further, I'll just go through some of the presets now. So starting at the top of the screen, there's the trigger mode button here, which can be set to trigger at the start of the note, or the host tempo, or an external source, or the MIDI clock. Next to this, you'll find the preset menu by clicking on this drop-down box here to access any settings and presets. Then the main synth itself, starting from left to right, we have the fine-tune dial, then a modulator, which is for LFO settings, including the LFO speed, the waveform shape, and the sync, the trigger, and invert waveform buttons. Then next to that is the oscillator controls with a mod slider here to set the amount of pitch modulation, and the range dial to choose the note octave. And then the pulse width slider here for changing the wave shape, and the modulation mode here to choose where the pitch is modulated from. Next we've got the source mixer, where you can mix in different waveforms and harmonics, including a sub-oscillator to add a lot of low end into the signal, and even some noise over here. Then we have the 24 dB low pass filter controls, where you have the usual frequency and resonance here, and also the amount of envelope and modulator intensity here, and this keyboard follow intensity slider here, which means that the cutoff point of the filter moves depending on which note you're playing in the keyboard. This can be really handy for when you want a really sharp resonance on every note being played. Next, under the envelope controls, you have the standard ADSR here, but you can also select what triggers the envelope between the usual gate and trigger, where it's triggered on every new note, or just a gate where it's triggered only if there isn't a note already playing, or even the LFO to trigger here too. This can be worth playing around with every now and then because it throws out some really unique sounds that I find are more like happy accidents than planned ones. Then moving down the bottom left here, you'll find the master controls with volume, portamento, a polyphonic button and a panic button which resets all the signals. Then over here are the pitch and modulation intensity sliders that control how much the mod wheel affects each of the three modulation routings. The velocity sliders here control how much the velocity affects the filter envelope and the volume over here. Then finally we get to the sequencer section. The first thing to mention is the lock button here, which I personally think needs to be implemented on pretty much every other synth that has an arpeggiator. By activating it, the arpeggiator patterns stays the same while you change the presets. The hold button next to that holds the last played notes when you stop playing, which is great for when you're using it live and need the last note or chord to carry on while you reach for another control. Tempo dial here is self-explanatory with a sync button next to it here to lock the certain tempos. Down the bottom here are the ARP and sequencer buttons, and if neither are activated then the synth will run in a normal mono voice mode, and there's a button next to the ARP one here to choose what kind of arpeggiator pattern is running, and then finally to the left of this is the main sequencer. Each of these segments represent a step in the sequence, and there is a dial over here to choose the amount of steps in any given sequence. There are 4 little LED buttons below the sequencer here, including a reset button to reset everything to the default parameter, a record sequence button so that you can manually play notes in, a load sequence to load a MIDI file, and then an edit mode button here. By clicking on this, the LED will be red or green. When it's red, you can then slide these central sliders up to set the velocity of each note like this. And then if you click it again, it goes green, and then those same sliders now control the note length in that step. Above these sliders, you'll see an S and P button. The S enables a slide to the next note using portamento, but bear in mind that when the sliders are green, it'll enable portamento with an envelope reset, whereas when it's red, it enables a portamento without resetting the envelope. The P button activates a pause step, and then finally the plus minus buttons here dictate the note to be played relative to the current one playing. So that's the basic overview. Now to finish off, I'll just go through some of the available preset sequences.
So that's the basics of TAL Bassline 101, and it's available through pluginboutique.com now. Cheers. See you soon.